Hey everyone, welcome to Cool Woman Central. I am your host, Sophia, and I am here joined by my mom, and we're just going to be talking about everything pop culture from a Gen Zer and a Gen Xer perspective. So thanks for tuning in and get ready for our first episode. So I guess
Hi,
just,
I'm the mom, Allison.
yeah, just I guess you can introduce yourself. Getting into it, I guess we'll talk about what is the most central in what I think a lot of I wouldn't say a lot of women's lives, but it seems to be a lot of, like, East Coaster like, I don't know, Carolyn Bessette is just so East Coast, so and I'm seeing, like, so much New York influence, but talking about Love Story that is currently airing on FX by Ryan Murphy. It is a limited 9-episode series, and it is, based on Elizabeth Beller's Once Upon a Time, captivating the life of, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, so I'm sure people have seen it online. It has taken a lot of wind. I myself have not watched it, but you've watched it. So what do
I
you
have
think about
watched
it?
it. I have watched it, and we should say it did just wrap up. So I
Yes.
have watched the finals series. I thought it was really interesting, and I of course have some thoughts about it. I watched it, wanted was interested in it because I had seen Ryan Murphy's his feud when he did feud with
Ryan
the
Murphy has a
what?
I was to say Ryan Murphy has a lot of feuds, but
Well, it was called Feud Capote versus the Swans,
okay.
and I just absolutely loved that. I mean, it was
I'm
just
just
one of
laughing
the
because the fact that he has a story called Feud and like every time Ryan Murphy puts something out on the media, it's like, why is Ryan Murphy doing this?
well, that yes, so that is true. So I just though I loved like the Capote story was it was just very entertaining. So I really wanted to see this, knowing that it would not be the same type of entertaining, but was really
You
interested in this because as that Gen Xer here, I mean, like I lived this
I
story.
was gonna say
Okay.
you were alive for this, so, like, what makes you interested in like, I don't know, that's what for me, it's like, I really like I have always really liked Carolyn Bessette and I like Princess Diana, but it's like one of those things where I've never lived when they were living, per se.
Right. And I know that you have extensively covered Carolyn's fashion for quite a while on the Cool Woman Central TikTok and Instagram. And, I know that's something that was very interesting to you. But again, like I said, I was followed this story during that time. And now there's just such this nostalgia moment that's happening that I realized that, oh my gosh, yes, the 90s were like a super magical time, it seems to be. It took me, I will say, talking about the show itself, and I know it has its critics, of course, but it took me a moment, I think, to get kind of warmed up to Paul Anthony Kelly playing
That's
JFK Jr.
okay. Well, because they only make one JFK Jr. You can't just, like, cast anybody as it which no, I'm not saying like, well, I will say I saw that the JFK Jr., Jack Slausenberg,
Yes.
I did see that he called Paul Anthony Kelly a puffy, bloated JFK Jr. So, I don't know
Yeah.
if
So
it's
I just,
ruffling the right feathers with the Kennedy family, but I could definitely see what he means.
yeah. Well, I would say for me, like at least I would say it took me a good 2 episodes, right, to just like get past that distraction of him trying to portray that character. So that was a little bit of a distraction for me. And the other thing that just never landed for me was Naomi Watts as Jackie.
Really?
And I have always like really appreciated Naomi Watts, and she did a great job. She was in the Swan. She was a Swan in the Capote story, but she just never landed for me as Jackie. So that was extremely distracting through all of those episodes as well.
I mean, she doesn't really look like Jackie. I'm looking at the the reference pictures side by side.
Yeah, it never landed. She never sold it for me. But there was again, I think Jackie probably has sort of this like elegance and air about her that you just have that or you don't. So,
I think it's in the same vein as JFK Jr., where it's like you don't have these people that were, you have these one of a kind people, you know, like
so
JFK Jr. being, you know, very like everybody was looking after him, you know what I mean? Then with like Jackie Kennedy, I think it's really unique because she's like, I don't know, like for what I've seen, it doesn't look like she's very natural beauty, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of the times the problem with them casting, and I'm not saying like I think Naomi Watts is very beautiful. I just think sometimes when you cast these roles and it's like a little bit like they're like too perfect, you know what I mean? They have that like iPhone face in a way.
yeah.
I think it can get a little bit iffy because it's like, oh well, if for me at least when I'm watching, film, television, whatnot, I'm like, okay, I know this person has some sort of work or filler, right? Which has been a bigger conversation in Hollywood. But to me, she just doesn't have that like chic, like almost like it's like almost flawless, but like not flawless because it's just like so like nonchalant and like try hard. You know what I mean? She's not trying hard, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I just feel like she doesn't really have that from what I'm seeing. But I don't know. I'm gonna watch the show. I've just been waiting for all the episodes to come out because I I'm sure as you saw from the last episode, I mean, we know how it ends.
Right. Well, so I do think it's definitely one of those shows that you could, binge,
That's where I'm
you
like, I
know.
think I could binge it and be very happy with that. But um on that note, I mean, Carolyn Bessette has been all over the media just with this. I mean, even since the show started filming, I remember pictures of the actress Sarah Pigeon coming out and media and just different people commenting online about the wardrobe. The biggest thing that people were saying, which I'll be curious to hear, like, you're not hair expertise or anything, but I remember when they first put out promos for the show, the blonde that she had was, like, almost too like, it wasn't the right kind of blonde. So I guess my question is, do you think Carolyn Bessette's shade of blonde in the series was the right shade of blonde?
Mm,
Because what people say is she had that burnt off blonde.
right. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I really didn't. I can't say I analyzed that a lot. I know I did look at a lot of videos on social from hairdressers talking about it, which was really the fascinating point for me because there was a lot of discussion from the hairdressers talking about, okay, understand if you're going to the salon and you're
You're
saying
going
you
every
want
6
this,
weeks.
right?
Yes,
Understand what you're asking for.
yes, I saw a
And
lot of, stylists coming on.
and I guess I guess I really hadn't thought about the fact that maybe people don't do that much. I don't know. I'm just saying in the 90s we did it and we didn't think about it. Like, did I'm talking like full head of foil highlights and, every 6 to 8 weeks I was there. I mean, I was in that chair.
You
You
were
know,
there
I know
regardless of your financials.
I know what my hair budget was at that time. And thinking back on it, it's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that was a little much, but
Well, also a different
different time."
time.
Yes.
Just because I
So
mean, I know if you go and get if you say you want I have this magazine here that because she has been all over, they have been all over. I picked up this magazine at an airport a few weeks ago, so I've been kinda just holding on to it, but, if you want that shade of blonde, you're gonna be sitting in a salon chair every 6 weeks, and it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg nowadays. I'm
yes,
sure
this is
it
true.
costed just as much and then just, inflation has unfortunately adjusted.
Yes,
So
absolutely. I will say I am loving all of the these like fashion, and the other thing that obviously is a big storyline in the show is the whole Calvin Klein
mhm.
storyline, and that is super interesting in and of itself. And they are just central characters to the story and the fashion, and just remembering those times. I mean, that kind of a heyday of like corporate style and the simplicity and the modernism of the style of that time. I know that that carries through, and I am in no way a fashionista, but I am just saying that I know that at that time, that was my wardrobe. You know, it was the black pants, it was the white shirt, it might have been the khaki pants, khaki and color dress pants, right? And just that very simplistic kind of modern pieces. And I mean, that I still love that today. And to just shine a spotlight on the relevance of Calvin Klein at the time, it really just shows how fashion in that world has changed, right? And gives you really a good deep perspective and look into the fashion industry at a time, but of course, obviously way before Calvin Klein was purchased by PVH, you know, and part of all of these big conglomerates where the designers are no longer attached to the brands in the way that they were in the 90s.
I think it's funny looking at, like, some of the marketing that's being done, especially around the series, like, I don't know if you've gotten the Amazon ads on your feed where they're trying to do the whole Carolyn Bessette thing where it's like Amazon is, you know, taking on this and you can, like, tell that they're referencing, like, the Carolyn Bessette vibe, so I just think it's super interesting, especially, like, I'm not saying, like, "Oh, I was here first," or whatnot, because I think, fashion, you can do whatever the heck you want, but I just do think it's funny that she's one of the people that I've been looking at for a long time, and so now to see her being referenced so hard when she's always been referenced, like, she's always I would put CBK in the same category as, like, Princess Diana in the bracket of, like especially, like, Pinterest, like, the girlies are always looking at what Princess Diana and CBK were wearing, or at least I, being
Sure.
one of the girlies, am. So, I just think it's really interesting, especially, like, just with, like, her rise of the different things that she liked, If you try and go on eBay, right, it's so funny because I've always been a chronic eBayer, Like, I'm always on eBay. I am always looking for my
I
next
know.
purchase on
You're
eBay.
you're you're a thrifter, so which
I am always
I love that about Gen Z though, too.
always looking on eBay for, if I'm looking for a specific designer item or something, if I can get it discounted. But what's so interesting about this whole Carolyn Bessette thing is that, like, for example, her favorite style jeans, which I have this book here. This is a really great reference. It's by Sunata Kumar Nar, just talking about CBK and just some of her different references. My favorite section of the book, which I have marked here, is talking about the essentials. So this is probably my most visited chapter of the book, because it's just talking about, her favorite silhouettes, her favorite dresses, her favorite jeans, which brings me into I think it's so funny with all of this happening, being a chronic eBayer because for a while now, when I saw CBK, I saw her jeans, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love her jeans." And so ever since I've probably known who she is, I was like, "Okay, the Levi 517," because that's what she wore, like, that was her famous style jean. It's just really funny now because if you go and you try and look for a pair of 517s, good luck. Good luck is all I'm saying because I I say good luck, but I did thrift a pair off of Poshmark last night before they go up too much in price is my point though, because they're my favorite pair of jeans. I already have 3 pairs. They're like the jeans I wear all day. So this lady knew what she was talking about, okay, when it comes to style. And she knew what she liked, and it's just funny because you see things like she had this infamous Prada coat. She had a few Prada coats that she would wear. You try and find those coats on eBay now, and they're going to be an arm and a leg to buy, but before this whole Ryan Murphy series, you kind of probably purchased it for, it would've been vintage retail price, but it was not going to be a, "Oh, Carolyn Bessette 5." You know? The pair of, 517 Levi's that I found off of Poshmark last night were labeled as Carolyn Bessette jeans. Like,
That's that's wild. I mean, just because I know you've been wearing those for such a long time. What about, like, the hair accessories? Okay, let me just say in the 90s, oh my gosh, I was a headband girl. I mean, headbands kind of were a thing, and I had a lot of them and wore them. And I know, for the last couple of years, you've been tuned into those, and we have gone together, um, and purchased those for you because I'm kinda past my headband girly days, but
well, I think the funny thing is here with, like, stuff like that, especially with the hair accessories, because for as you can tell, I've got a lot of hair, so trying to especially, like, nowadays, like, I don't know, when I was younger, it was easier to just brush it I'm just gonna part it and wear it down, you know what I mean? But now that I'm a bit older, it's like, okay, if I'm wearing my hair down, I probably have to have a clip doing it halfway up just to keep it out of my face when I'm doing things. So I think it's so funny with that because, like, I feel like I kinda started doing that because of you know what I mean? And I don't know if that's your '90s influence, but, like, you had all
I
these
know.
French-made clips,
Yes, I've
in
always had
your
the thick hair. If it's not a French clip, it's not gonna hold my hair. Yep.
right, so you've always
I
had that expectation.
yes, I mean, I know you definitely have acquired a few of those, which would probably be considered vintage at this point, but,
Yes, I mean, and that's where I've, you know, gotten my love for hair, especially for sometimes but most of the time when it's in my day-to-day, I'm wearing, say it might be a pair of 517s or I might be wearing a pair of slacks or whatever. Most of the time, my biggest accessories to me are going to be what I'm putting on my body besides my clothes. So for me, I get excited because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, I get to pick out whatever hair accessory I can wear today." You know what I mean? So I just think it's really interesting, especially, like, where you can get these hair accessories, CO Biglio, I've dragged you there a bunch in New
yes.
York. That is
Yeah,
just one of the men
it's such a fun shop to go into, though.
right.
I mean, I know it's been a little bit crazier from what we've seen on social with people flocking to it, but, and it's I think anytime we've ever been previously to this, it was busy, but it's a fun vibe and a fun shop, but
Definitely,
yeah.
I think
Mm,
I mean, we've been seeing videos of them overrun with people trying to get the Carolyn Bessette
mm,
headband or whatnot, which I already have, I'll have you know, like, I didn't have to go and buy that, but even, like, the hair clips, like, I don't know, they're really wonderful if you ever get the chance to wander into CO Biglio in New York. There's a few other apothecaries in New York that also serviced a CBK, but I know CO Biglio is my favorite just because the way that they have all of the, clips displayed. I mean, shoot, the one I'm wearing in my hair right now is from there. Um, they have the best selection, and they're not, like, super expensive. Obviously, you're paying for French imported hair clips, like, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive than buying at Walgreens, but I love all my hair clips from there. I mean, I just think they're so wonderful. Even outside of, like, CO Biglio, I have found some places local to where I am that sell French hair clips, so I'm always kind of on the lookout for them. So if you haven't gotten any of them, I highly recommend because, like, I know right now for the Gen Zers, like, the big brand is, like, Imi, which is so funny because you hear Imi J, and I feel like you probably think of those Imi J, like, hair ties that we used to buy, right?
right? I do, yes.
Right? Okay, well, they've completely rebranded themselves, like, and I think
That
that's
okay.
fascinating to think about how they completely rebranded themselves. I don't know, I guess it has to be the same company, right, if you're going by that name, but they're going by Imi J, and they do they have hair products, but their big thing is the hair clips, okay? Is the hair clips. They do a lot of hair clips, and they're not cheap, I'll say that. Like, they are not cheap hair clips. I can't give my review on them because I've never bought one from them. I've thought about it, I think I'm a little bit too married to the idea of my hair clips only have to be from France, though, not to sound bouge, like, I
I
feel
will
bougie when I say that, but
yeah, I will say that, another great source for me has always been Nordstrom's. Nordstrom for the French hair clips, barrettes and any of those things. That's where I would say I bought probably the majority of the ones that I have had over the years too.
yeah, I mean, I've gotten a few. Etsy has some good ones if you're looking for directly from France. If you're familiar with the New Hope, Lambertville area of Pennsylvania/New Jersey, they have a really awesome shop called Bucks County Dry Goods. They have 2 shops over in Lambertville. If you go over to the one that's a little bit more hidden, though, that's the one that has a lot of really awesome hair clips from France. Actually, had a really great conversation last time I was in that shop talking with the shop owner about how his tour in New York and had this lady who was bringing over these hair clips from France, and then, he eventually opened a store up in, Lambertville/New Hope area, and she conveniently has another house there, so he's been able to really continue selling those hair clips, which I think is awesome. But with that being said, I mean, I think it's really interesting looking at, like, the whole love story thing and, who they casted because I think at touching on what you were saying with Paul Anthony Kelly, you're saying it took a warm-up period. I think it took a warm-up period with the public in general with the fact that Ryan Murphy was doing this series, it seemed, because, Ryan Murphy's he's the American Horror Story, like, he's very infamous, like, like saying infamous in about for some people, it might be a bad way for him. I like his work, I think he's very, camp, very creative with his stuff. I think
Yeah,
art is subjective, so sometimes the things that people are going to push out obviously, this series, for example, Love Story, it is not 100% accurate. They from what I have heard, they only have one of Carolyn's sisters in here, you know what I mean? So, it's small things like that, but I just think it's really interesting, but going back to that conversation of actors, I think Sarah Pigeon originally, when I first saw pictures come out for this whole series with, uh with these 2, I was kind of I think I was more on the Paul Anthony Kelly I guess maybe I didn't pay as much of attention to him, I was like, "He's just kinda there, okay." To me, my focus was on Carolyn, though, so I was looking at Sarah Pigeon, and I wasn't really 100% sure. I think she's very beautiful, and I still need to watch the series, so we can circle back to this at some point. I think she's very beautiful, but I think Carolyn almost had this, like, bit of imperfection about her that made her more beautiful, you know what I mean? It was very unconventional beauty. And like I said, I think Sarah Pigeon is very beautiful. I think she lacks a little bit of that unconventional beauty is my thing, to be Carolyn. That being said, I haven't watched the series, so I don't know. So I'm curious to hear
yeah,
what you have to say. I do plan now that all the episodes are out, I do plan on watching it so I can just
yeah.
go through and binge it. But what do you think about her
So I
casting?
guess the interesting thing about her is that I was a little bit more removed from really following like Carolyn and her style and all of those things. So she wasn't as, I guess she just wasn't as distracting to me, right? Because I don't have a CBK book on my coffee table or a magazine like or following her in that way, so it was easier for me to not think about it as much and for her just to kind of seamlessly become the character in a way that
Right.
was a little bit more difficult, I think, for the those that members of the Kennedy family. So
Right. I mean,
but
I think and, I said this when the series came out. I knew when they said that Ryan Murphy was doing a whole love story on the I was like, "They're not the family is not gonna like it," because anything that Ryan Murphy touches, Ryan Murphy's gonna do what Ryan Murphy does best, and that is make some stuff up, okay? And that's okay, I think there's space for that with, like, with creative. you as you know, as the person who is making this series, you have all the liberty to, decide the direction you wanna go. If you wanna cut a sister, or you wanna, however, that's your
Yeah.
decision, so I just think it's really interesting. But I will say, I mean, like you said, you're not looking at Carolyn Bessette's face all the time. Not saying I'm looking at her face all the time, but I definitely look at her face, like, all the time. Um, because I mean, I have this is a newer magazine, mind you. I got this at the airport, like I said, and I have this book, but, like, I have vintage magazines from when they got married, from, like, I have a lot of reference images of her just from that time, and
Right.
just, like, I think for me, like, what attracts me to somebody like that and, like, just her energy is that, like, it was so perfectly imperfect, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It was just kind of like, "Okay, we're gonna throw on this and do this," and as somebody that wears a lot of neutral colors, like, in the '90s, it's really nice to be able to go back on somebody and like that and be like, "Okay, well, she didn't really care about her jeans and sneakers, and I'm not gonna care about my jeans and sneakers," you know? I think Sarah Pigeon was a good choice. Speaking on her, I think it was really with all of the buzz happening around with Love Story, I think it was really, I mean, it was really awesome. I think it was whoever is working in the road marketing department, I think they were really on the nail there, just in terms of what's going to be a hit, because as soon as Love Story aired, basically, and was getting all this traction, you had that road campaign come out from Hailey Bieber, and it was Sarah Pigeon, I think it was advertising their new like, different, lip tints and cheek shades, things like that. So I think that was, like, coming from a marketing perspective, I'm like, "That's awesome," right? Like,
Right. Absolutely, in terms of timing. So, yeah, also, I think during overall, in terms of timing, as we're looking at, feel like this series has really brought up this whole these kind of
mhm.
nostalgia. So I've really loved that this really these kind of nostalgia social media trend that I've seen. I don't know if you have seen any of these, but I went down this rabbit hole one day, and then of course my feed was full of this, but all of the, what were you like in the 90s? And it's starting off like with their current picture to these flashbacks. And some of them I really had to stop and go, "Wait, who was that back then? Did I know that person?" And obviously some of these were done by other people who were putting them out, but there were some that the actual celebrities embraced and did themselves, so those were fun, and, some of those that make you stop and go, "Okay, yeah, I remember, yeah, like the Kevins, as I call them, the Kevin Bacon and Kevin Costner."
What was it like being in the '90s when, like, well, Kevin Costner still looks really good. Like, he still looks really good. But, like, what was it like when he was, like, in his young Leo vibes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was
Cause wasn't
definitely
he busy with Whitney Houston? Weren't
I
they?
I don't know, but that was certainly that whole movie certainly was a vibe, wasn't it? The Bodyguard, so, I mean, he was definitely top of his game then, but there were some others that were kind of fun, that were memorable, like Brooke Shields and, Kirsten Davis did one,
That
and
Kristen Davis is, she's, Sex and the City, uh,
yes,
Charlotte,
yes,
or yes, right? Yeah.
yes, and
I think I saw hers. I saw hers for sure.
okay. And then there was one, and I don't it might have not been official. It might have been unofficial, but the one that like kills you is the Bruce Willis one, you know. Um I saw one featuring him as well, but that's been interesting, and it's still something that's popping up a lot. So people are still kind of on that trend and on that vibe right now. And so I think we should talk a little bit and look back over what's happened like in this first quarter of the year, like with just all the fashion week updates, because there was some really interesting stuff, just transitioning away to like current what's happening, you know.
No, right. Yeah, just, going off of the news thing, I very much think that while the 90s are trending, there is a lot going on outside of that space. For example, I mean, Paris Fashion Week happened first week of March. Uh, I think out of all of the shows that, you know, ran a line, for me, I think the top one probably was Chanel by Matthew Blazy. This is the one I think I've heard the most about out of all of the drops. Like, I'm sure people have heard there's been so much with Fashion Week, just the fashion world is forever changing. But I think what made Matthew Blazy's fall 2026, such a hit was the shoes. That even now, it's been a few weeks since the show actually, aired,
Yeah.
but since then, I have just the beginning, it was, "Oh my gosh, the New York store they can hardly open," you know what I mean? It was, you have to get in line at say they open at 11 o'clock, you better get in line at 8 o'clock, if you wanna be able to have the opportunity to purchase anything from this line, and the biggest items I would say that I noticed that were trending from this line would be the pony hair slingbacks and ballet flats. So I've been seeing
Interesting.
a lot about, like, if you look at a lot of footwear that came from the show, it was very interesting, but I think what resonated most with the public was the pony hair, the classic Chanel slingback and ballet flat, like, that's their classic silhouette, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, going back into Paris Fashion Week, I mean, it had started in New York all the way to London and now in Paris. I mean, Paris was more towards the beginning of March, but going into Matthew Blazy's new Paris, debut of all of this line, the biggest trend has just been, "Can I get my hands on these pony hair Chanel shoes?" And can I personally right now? Absolutely not. Do I want them? Absolutely, yes. They're so pretty. I don't know if you've seen what they look like, but they
Mm.
are,
Yes.
very
Yes.
interesting. Fashion Week has been super exciting to look at, just going from New York to London to Paris, and for me, the most notorious show recently, I guess, has been Chanel, Matthew Blazy's debut, so it's just been really interesting seeing what sort of shoes have come out, like, shoes and accessories have been the biggest thing. I feel like shoes and accessories are Chanel's biggest thing most of the time, 'cause, like, I unless you're wearing, like, a tweed suit from Chanel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't make a lot of ready to wear or couture things that are just, like, super casual, I don't know. I feel like there are some lines like YSL and Dior that will create more like it's definitely designer, but, like, more everyday. Chanel just is never one of those brands for me. It's like if you're wearing Chanel, they're gonna know you're wearing Chanel. So, it's just been funny seeing the lines wrapped around trying to get into the New York store, because I remember when Matthew Blazy's, this spring collection first launched over here in the United States, it was, "What New York store can everybody get to that's gonna have it?" Is it, "Do we go to Soho or are we going to Fifth Ave?" And so just seeing the lines of people lined up for some shoes, it's crazy. I will say, I do think they are really cute because I think the pony hair is really interesting. I love pony hair. I think it's, a fun, chic accessory, especially on, like, a bag or shoes. So and even with Chanel, it's just like, if you buy a Chanel shoe, you're probably either gonna be buying a sling bag or a ballet flat. Not all the time, obviously, like, do whatever you want, get whatever you want, but I think that their most famous shoe silhouettes are that ballet that ballet flat with the cap toe right there, and then you also have the slingback, which also has that little cap toe. So, they have those little details that kinda lets you know it's Chanel. But I'm interested to know
Yeah.
what you think because 'cause you're not so much of, like, a heel wearer.
No, I'm not. But what I really did think was kind of interesting was that, that cap toe shoe, man, that's going to be their classic, right? I was really intrigued by that chunky flared block heel, right? I thought that was a really interesting update to that.
Right,
And in a practical way that you could see a
right.
lot of people like really embracing that as a good, everyday kind of work shoe.
Well, and I mean, I think that Chanel makes, like, a kind of
Yeah,
good
they do.
everyday
They do.
work shoe. It obviously, it's at a bit of a steeper price point, but I think, like, for
Yeah.
me, when I think about it, it's like, okay, well, I would love to have a pair of the just basic nude and black Chanel slings because, like, they're so versatile, but even, like, there's this influencer that I follow on TikTok and Instagram. She's more active on TikTok or not on TikTok, on Instagram now than she is on TikTok, but she's always posting. Her name is Elie, DePinto. She is just, like, always put like, I really like her because she's very authentic with her content. She doesn't have, like, a ton of following, but she's very, like, "Oh, this is what I like," So, I saw her journey trying to get the Chanel, ballet flat because she really likes the Chanel ballet flat.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think they had the Chanel ballet flat because I was listening to her story time that she posted, and she ended up with the pony hair slingback, and I was like, "That's a perfect shoe." So I think Chanel's got it down in terms of the sling back, you know?
Yeah.
Some of their other experimental shoes that came out, I mean, fashion is experimental, it is subjective, and so, some of the
Yeah.
silhouettes that came out, I think were really interesting.
So, talking about fashion being experimental, I personally like fashion from the perspective of fashion being an art statement.
Mhm.
And I think probably this past spring season, probably nobody did it better than Christian Dior.
Yeah.
At the end of January, their couture line that debuted with Jonathan Anderson. I mean, that was just
I
art.
mean,
I truly was it was one of those things where I was like, "Okay, I could truly see myself just loving and being at that fashion show and being just immersed in that." It was really just really nature inspired and described really kind of as a floral, like, wonderland, just really art on the runway.
right, I mean, even if you look at, like, the pictures of their runway, I think the
Right.
flowers hanging overhead, the floor kinda looks like water, all the guests are kinda sitting on this, like kinda looks kinda looks like they're sitting on a little pebble in a lake, you know?
Yeah. That for me is one thing that just really caught my attention as somebody who does, has spent a lot of time as an event producer.
Right.
Just the boy, what a beautiful event. What a beautiful event to work on and just immersing yourself in really
And
a big product activation, but it was gorgeous.
a big product activation, but I will say my thing is, like, Jonathan Anderson does not play. Like, that is a man who does not play. It's so funny. Every time I put on, like, a pair of, like, light watch you'll have to look it up to get the reference, but Jonathan Anderson notoriously at the end of he'll come out at the end of his shows, and he is just in literally, like, a white T-shirt with a sweater on top and, like, light wash jeans. Like, he is, like, the most low-key man ever. So sometimes I'm pulling inspiration off of him. I'm like, "What do I need to wear as my unit?" Whenever I wear, like, a light wash jean and, like, a sweater tucked in under a white shirt, I'm like, "I am Jonathan Anderson."
But I get that, but that also is very much an artist vibe, I think,
Yeah.
and an artist vibe who truly appreciates a woman, you know,
Right, well,
in
because I
terms of
mean,
the form of a woman.
you could argue that some of these other people, they know what they're designing, and my thing is I'm not saying they don't know what they're designing. I feel like I've seen a lot of really beautiful dresses and shirts and pants and accessories this fashion season, but I think that is what truly, I know, like, John Galliano is, like, super controversial with he is a regardless of how controversial he is, he's a very pivotal person, like, he's very big in the fashion like, without him, we wouldn't have a lot of things in terms of, you know, influence and culture and things like that. And I've always looked at, like, a lot of the stuff that John Galliano has put out as, like, he loves women, you know what I mean? Like, he knows how to dress a woman. Like, he's not just I guess my best example would be, like, more recently, it's felt like Gucci, like, because Gucci has really done some really beautiful stuff. Some of their older stuff, I look at sometimes on the real, and I'm like, "This is beautiful." But some of their newer clothes, I'm just like, "This doesn't, like, fit to a woman." It might fit to the brand, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit towards the woman. So I think what's so beautiful about what Jonathan Anderson is doing is that, like, he seems to really be that whole lady like and I'm not saying pigeonholing him in just Lady Dior, right? You know what I mean? But I think he has beautifully found that area of, "Okay, I know how to dress a woman. This is how a woman wants to feel in her clothes," you know? So I just think he has a totally different perspective. I think he is like I mean, not I think he is, I think he will be one of the greats from this time, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um
Interesting. Yeah.
Just with everything being said and done, just based off of alone from this past Dior collection, just the flowers, it just felt like spring. I don't know how you felt,
Yes.
but
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Just the entire thing just visually was just spectacular. So I think as we're talking about art and beauty and things that came out over this last quarter, we also have to just mention Elie Saab and that couture line that came from Paris at the end of January. I mean, that was just golden sparkle, right? The name of that show, that line was Golden Nights of 71. And just what beautiful art. I mean, just all the gold and the bronze and all those rich textures and the beadwork and
well, I mean,
the art deco. I mean, it was just so fascinating.
I think like the the actual show itself, like all those colors, I think it was really interesting looking at those pictures because it was like, okay, it felt like it was very, not monotoned, but it felt like they were matching the colors of the dresses to the skin tones, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think was really interesting and really nice, and I think that Ali Saab they've gotten a lot of credit, but I would say, like, his work in the last few years hasn't gotten enough credit because like, people know who they are, but it's not like a Christian Dior, Chanel situation. Obviously, they're doing, like, couture dresses, like, gowns,
Right.
so it's a little bit different, but I definitely think that they deserve more recognition because I mean, that the Golden Summer Nights was of '71 was really, really pretty, and I mean, I think that even them and, jumping ahead a little bit, but going into, like, the Ralph Lauren fall line, like, seeing what Elie Saab has done most recently, it's like, this is really good, but it's like, man, I should go back and look at some of their older work because it's like, even with this I've seen a lot of people talking about the new Ralph Lauren, fall line, and I don't know, maybe you can take it away on this one.
Well, I was pretty fascinated just by it, just because I felt like I couldn't determine sometimes from some of the media reviews if it was like that sort of sarcastic mockery that they were talking about or if they were real because I did see it come out and people were like, okay, Ralph Lauren ready to wear fall is straight up castle core, you know? these medieval knights. And then I saw, other mentions of that and things like using that terminology like in Vogue. And that was really interesting. The layering and the textures and the color. What I did love about that collection was the color palette. I mean, it was my color palette, right? Something that
Very neutral to I mean, just
and
I'm looking at the
browns
pictures
and
here, it's blacks, it's different variations of dark brown, you've got a few leopard print, then you've got metallics and, like, some furs and different, like, leather textures in there, but it's all very earthy toned.
yes, and I think that especially because it hits that ready to wear segment. What was so interesting, I think, about somebody like a Ralph Lauren is that, he's like really sticking to kind of that legacy of the brand in terms of all the textures and the patterns and the colors and things like
Right.
that. When we are definitely in this kind of modern, simpler look for fashion, I just feel like that's
So do you feel like
just,
they're more, like, maximalist
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
versus, like, the minimal because, like, I guess, like, what you're saying what resonates with me from what you're saying is, like, I know for, like, Gen Zers, a lot of the time, it's, the matching workout sets, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah,
Like, it's all very, like that's just what comes to mind when I think about it. It's like, "Oh, okay, it's the matching workout sets, it's the matching sweat set or whatnot." I think, obviously, like, I don't like, I'm not speaking for everybody here, but I think sometimes that Gen Z sometimes can be a little bit more casual, you know?
yeah,
I think you've got your people that really dress up and dress how they want, and then you've also got that side, I guess, is just what I'm saying with the matching sets. It's the matching, um athleisure wear or the matching sweat set. I just think it's interesting to have somebody like Ralph Lauren come out and it's like, "Oh, castle core, da da da." But it's like, even when I look at it, I'm like, this isn't I mean, I guess it's castle core to some degree, but I'm just like, people just aren't layering enough.
well, true, and I mean, isn't it Ralph Lauren whose thing is the 3rd layer?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like the whole 7-point outfit thing where it's like you have 7 different points. So it's
Uh-huh,
like, um, you know, I
yeah,
I
so
I think that the Ralph Lauren look is all about layering, you
yes,
know? They do a lot of layers. That's why I like winter and fall so much because I can layer and do all that.
yes.
It's starting to get hot out now, and I'm starting to get ticked off because I don't know what to wear, and I feel like I don't look as good. But I mean, for Ralph Lauren, I feel like it's that 7-point outfit styling where it's, polished looks to garments and accessories with that 7 to 10-point range.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there's one other designer that we need to talk about because it's worth talking about. And that, of course, is Max Alexander. Max
Right, the little
Alexander,
kid, that's the 10-year-old child, right?
right, had his first Paris Fashion Week. Youngest person at age 10 to debut at Paris Fashion Week. Now, I have been a fan since the kid first hit social, just watching that
I was gonna say since
his
he was born.
since he hit social, right?
Yes, yes. No,
And
I remember when he first hit social and, like, his parents his I don't know who manages his socials, but his guardians or whoever have been
yes,
posting about it since he could basically, put things together.
right. Because he's just like seems to be like channeling this, like, I gotta do it.
Right.
I gotta do it. I mean, so that's really amazing to, like, see his work process. Now, obviously, I can tell you that collectively, when I saw the Paris collection, when it hit the runway, I was kinda like, like, about it. And then I was like, "Okay, but it's deeper than that, right?" It's not about, like, the collective visual necessarily of the pieces. It
Yeah,
was
like,
about the pieces themselves in terms of the fact that he was using all these recycled materials and all this dead stock.
you also have to remember, like, and what I'm saying, like, because like, I think his show was fantastic, like, I the fact that he was able to have a debut at 10 years old, and what you're saying
Right.
about how you might have not looked at his collection and been like, yes, he's 10 years old. So, the fact that
Right.
he has a like, he is the youngest person to debut, like, has a fashion collection debuting at Paris Fashion Week, I mean, like, regardless of how you think about it, I'm like, this kid can only get I mean, I think about it in a smaller scale of like a if you think of like a nail artist, right? You have like a there's a lot of local people around here, they do nail art, right? They're doing nail art. At some point, they're going to get better and better and better, right?
Yeah.
He is going to get so much better, better, and better. He's only 10 years old. I mean, imagine what he's doing when he's 20, you know?
Right, and if you ever watch him going through his design process, I mean, that kid he doesn't sketch, at all. That is I mean, he's working with his hands and building out everything as he goes from some inner vision, right? It's a really fascinating process. So, oh my gosh, and then that him on the runway with that little cape on that he designed.
Oh, well, I love the cape that he had. I mean, the actual designs that he had on the runway were really just I mean, looking at his being so young and, you're being only 10 years old,
Yeah,
using this sustainability factor in his decision when making these different, outfits, I think is really awesome, especially, like, the one that, you're talking about his cape, but the one that really, like, caught my eye was I remember seeing people after the debut talking about how he made a like, I saw this picture of the dress and I said, "That looks like a Free People bag." And then I found out that it's actually 28 Free People bags.
yeah.
So the fact that he's able to take, like, I'm not even sure what the composition of the Free People bags are. I would imagine it's either some really thin cotton or some polyester, but the fact that he was able to do that, I was just like, "Wow, that's great." Especially, like, I don't know, I Free People bags, they give you like, every I don't know if you've ever shopped at Free People, but if you ever shop at there, they give you a tote bag, and it feels like the world's most flimsy tote bag you'll ever, like, hold, okay? It is, like, the crazy like, and I'm not complaining because I listen, in a day and age where we have to pay for bags, I'm like, "Okay, give me my little crazy little stretch bag." But I just think it's funny and creative how he took, and the fact that it was only 28 of those bags to cover somebody's body, I would have thought it would have been more.
Yeah, exactly, which really goes back to the fact that, oh my gosh, that's just in his mind, and
Right.
he's working that with his hands. He didn't sketch it out to figure to figure it out. So that's really interesting. There was kind of a little side story I think that popped up on social for me that I really loved, during, all of the publicity of him debuting at Fashion Week. Was there's a woman in New York, and she runs, some social channels. Her name is Kim Hale, and she modeled for him and did, like, a whole fashion shoot. So she really pushed that out on her social and talked about that, and I think, you know, again, Gen X perspective here. Kim Hale, again, is also another really interesting person in terms of inspiration. She is this 58-year-old dancer who is pursuing her dreams in New York City. And I've seen her wear this T-shirt that basically says "Dreams have no deadlines." So, just a little side note there, tie back to the Max Alexander story. Just a shout out to that, to her, and trying to inspire women everywhere to continue to chase those dreams. So,
Right. I
love
love her
that.
her Instagram. She has Very
Yes.
lively Instagram, so if you wanna go check that out, she's at Miss Kim Hale.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I mean, as somebody that's been in theater, I think that's super inspiring because it's one of those things that, you might be young at some point and it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do all this acting," but it's like it doesn't have to stop, and I mean, that's one of those things that I feel like I learned doing theater. It's like, you work with older people sometimes in some of these roles, and it's like, "Okay, well,
Yeah.
you don't just have to stop." So I think that that is super awesome, and I
Awesome.
mean yeah, so I mean, going into, like, I guess what we've seen on socials this past week, have you seen anything interesting? I know you've been super into Lady Gaga.
So, yes, so right. So this popped up for me, and I assume it's because, I've been tracking the mayhem ball, but because, you know, Lady Gaga does appeal. She's right there in that millennial middle, right?
Right.
Appeals to all ages. But a really interesting thing that popped up for me on social after the Bad Bunny, halftime show and everything, there was a story that popped up about the pleating of Lady Gaga's blue dress that she
Mhm.
wore in that halftime show. And it highlighted this company called Thompson's International Pleating, which is this 95-year-old New York City business. And just super fascinating when you look at the fashion industry. First of all, the owner there, the one who was working on this, I mean, talked about how that they brought that dress right into the shop, like in the morning, like with a day of deadline, and they pleated all the fabric and quickly and did all of that work, and then the fabric was whisked away at the end of the day to the person who would do the final sewing. So they didn't even know how all of that wonderful pleating that they did, what it was going to end up being and
Right.
how it was going to be used. So that was super interesting. But just that's just a really fascinating glimpse, I think, into, fashion and certainly something here that's still in the States. But the owner talks about how, his grandmother was really the one who started that pleating business and how that art and the crafts are in danger and the lost significance really of the New York City Garment Center. This pleating company also did the work on Ariana Grande's dress for the Wicked premiere as well. So,
Right.
I mean, if you just think about somebody who's so specialized that we do this really accurate, fine fabric pleating, it's just truly a fascinating aspect of the industry. So I'm going to link that in our comments, that TikTok as well, because just think it's
You
again
have to give
really
Tom
worth
and
noting.
Sons his credit.
Absolutely. Yes.
Which I mean, I think it's Tom's Sons is his name, or
Yes.
the business name. I mean, I think that's like, I don't think there's enough highlight into all of the artistry that comes with all of this. I mean, coming from like the musical theater background, like, I'm very privy to what, you need to build a costume, but it's like learning about those little details like that. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I had one internship where I really got to learn about, the dance costume industry. So it was just, learning, it does matter what type of sequence you put on a tutu, you know? Or,
Yeah.
in this situation with Lady Gaga's dress, it matters what sort of pleating there was, you know? So I just think it's really interesting to have, to have such a meticulous craft like that. And I mean, that's just it's one of the many wonderful things about New York that they are preserving. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, I think do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I think we're probably out of time on this
Yeah.
episode.
I think we are out of time, but don't fret. You can find us on Cool Woman Central on TikTok and on Instagram, where you can message us about other topics you might want to discuss or you might want to see us discuss. Um, Also, feel free to drop us an email at coolwomancentral@gmail.com.
But yeah, stay cool, stay inspired, and we will see you next time.